This is 5 on your side at noon. Focused on you.
As we go on the air at noon, we're following breaking news in Alton. A police officer is in the hospital right now after being injured during a shootout. And we've just learned a department canine involved in the incident has died after being shot. Thanks for being here. I'm Kay Quinn. We now know the person responsible for shooting both officers is also dead. Illinois State Police have taken over the case. This all happened around 6:30 this morning at Liberty and East 6. That's in downtown Alton, a few blocks from Barth Park. 5 on your side's Diamond Palmer is there live. Diamond?
Well, Kay, we are live here at Liberty and 6th Street, and as you can see just behind me, there's still police tape up and plenty of evidence markers here on scene. We've seen police nearly here for about 6 hours now that we come on air here at noon. They've been collecting evidence, talking to neighbors, and like you said, just before we came on air, we were able to confirm with the Alton Police Department that their canine officer, Odin, died from his injuries. We also know the suspect died in the shooting, and the Alton officer that was shot, we are hearing that he is doing okay. Now, this is Odin here on your screen. We were told from the department the canine officer joined the department earlier this year and then went to the Canine Academy in February, but graduated just months ago in May of this year. Now, Alton police say all of this happened this morning when they say they engaged in gunfire with a suspect on Liberty and East 6th Streets. One witness we talked to says she heard police shouting in her backyard looking for the suspect, and they were shining their lights. She says she then heard police say to the suspect, quote, "Don't move or my dog will bite you," referring to canine officer Odin. She says that's when she heard multiple gunshots ring out and had to hide her 5 children on the floor.
I had my windows open to let the cool air in, and my kids were all sleeping, and bullets don't have eyes, you know? They go where they want to go. I'm kind of curious on why they ran on my house. Other than that, I don't really know what to ask. Yeah. You know, it's not an everyday situation where you get woke up to.
Now, we, of course, are continuing to ask the Alton Police Department for answers as far as what led up to this shooting. We do know, however, that the Illinois State Police Department is the lead investigator on this. But again, just moments before we came on air, just talking to the mayor's office here in Alton, they told us there was another shooting that happened last night. And so far, they don't know if that shooting or today's shooting are connected. Of course, we'll continue to ask those questions and give you those answers here all day long. Reporting live here in Alton, Diamond Palmer, 5 on your side.
All right, thank you, Diamond. Also breaking at noon, the Missouri Supreme Court has blocked an agreement that would have spared the life of Marcellus Williams. He's currently on death row for killing former Post-Dispatch reporter Leisha Gale in 1998. He's expected to be executed next month. The ruling came hours after a judge approved a plan that would allow Williams to enter an Alford plea to first-degree murder and reduce his sentence to life in prison without parole. The plea acknowledges evidence is sufficient for a conviction. St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell argues DNA evidence doesn't link him to the crime. There's a hearing next Wednesday to review the evidence related to Williams' innocence claim. A man is dead after being hit by a semi-truck on Interstate 55. The Missouri State Highway Patrol says the truck hit Antonio Green at Bayless Avenue just after midnight. They say he was stranded on the side of the highway and didn't see the truck. The driver stayed on the scene. A shooting leaves a man dead in Jefferson County. A sheriff's office says a suspect is in custody, accused of shooting and killing a man in Imperial last night. Investigators believe the shooting was an isolated and targeted incident. No names have been released.
And the weather forecast started out very cool this morning. We had some areas in the 40s. Can you believe it? Coming up in Maine weather, I'll show you a couple of those colder spots. And it felt like it this morning. Jacket weather for sure. And now it's very sunny to partly sunny. So that's what we're expecting throughout the day. A few high clouds are starting to move in on the Missouri side here. Otherwise, the Illinois side, really St. Louis eastward, is very clear. And this huge dome of high pressure that is baking Texas. So those are heat advisories and excessive heat warnings down there. That does expand into our area as we get into the weekend. So 90s for highs and overnight lows in the 70s. And our hottest days look to be Monday and Tuesday. And we'll get into those numbers coming up in just a few minutes. But current temperatures after 40s and 50s this morning, we have already rebounded nicely into the 70s. 76 Scott Air Force Base, Flora coming in at 73, and Chesterfield at 74. Once again, for overnight lows tonight, most of us in the 50s, but St. Louis likely right around 60, and I'll have that weekend forecast coming up. Kay.
All right, thank you, Jim. Vice President Kamala Harris is accepting the Democratic nomination for president tonight. NBC's Alice Barr is at the United Center in Chicago with more on the last night of the Democratic National Convention.
Hi there. We are counting down to the main event when Vice President Kamala Harris will take the stage to formally accept her party's history-making nomination for president. Sources are telling NBC News that in her speech, she's going to try to go through her personal and professional story to present a contrast with former President Trump and then to lean into what they're describing as a deep and abiding sense of patriotism. That all follows her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, doing the same, kind of introducing himself to the nation. He talked a lot about his personal story, having been a teacher and high school football coach. There were some of his former athletes that were actually here in the United Center, and he gave what amounted to a locker room pep talk. He talked about being down by a field goal, but going on offense and having the right team to carry this over the finish line in these final weeks and months before the election. He also spoke about, his growing up in a small town in Nebraska and how that taught him to take care of each other, but also to mind your own business. And that really fed into what he was setting up as his definition of freedom. He talked about reaching across the aisle when he was in Congress. He's someone who was chosen certainly in an attempt to appeal to those small town, working class, white, rural Americans that this ticket is going to need. And he talked about knowing when to reach across the aisle and compromise, but not compromising his values. He did not shy away from the series of progressive policies that he signed now that he is governor of Minnesota, and talked about not banning books, but banishing hunger from classrooms. He talked about protecting reproductive freedom, and again, that all went into his conception of what freedom is. So that was the big moment from last night. But again, it's all leading up to tonight when Vice President Kamala Harris will take the stage and make that last push on the final night of the Democratic National Convention. From the United Center in Chicago, I'm Alice Barr, NBC News.
Our political editor, Mark Maxwell, is in Chicago. He'll report from the convention again tonight at 5, 6, and 10. You can also catch his reports on KSDK.com and streaming on 5+. For the first time since last month's attempted assassination, Donald Trump spoke from behind bulletproof glass. During a rally in North Carolina yesterday, he stressed national security. He also blamed President Biden and Vice President Harris for the deadly Afghanistan withdrawal and wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. Independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. may be dropping out of the race for the White House. NBC is reporting he's expected to announce he'll end his campaign and endorse former President Trump tomorrow. For weeks, Kennedy's campaign has floated his interest in a cabinet position in a future Trump White House. Upgrades and repairs are coming to the Dome at America Center. Still ahead, how much they're expected to cost. Plus, Taylor Swift speaks out what the pop star is saying 2 weeks after those canceled concerts in Vienna. And be sure to join 5 on Your Side tonight for a special Race, Listen, Learn, Live, Voices of Ferguson. You'll hear from Ferguson stakeholders and residents 10 years after the death of Michael Brown and the unrest that followed. See how far the city's come and the work that remains. Join us at 7 p.m.